Here's another thing to be watchful for: companies that make you sign way too many forms during the hiring process. If it seems like it's taken all day to get through the paperwork, there's a good chance they mixed in something shady. For example, you can end up taking on more liability than usual as a driver. If you sign something that says that your company's vehicle insurance will not get involved if you get into an accident while driving a company truck, and the repair costs will come out of your pay and your pocket, which, if you know anything about big trucks, can easily get into the several thousands. So basically, you agree to take on one of the cons of being an owner-operator with none of the pros. This is what you might call a red flag. Normally, you might get fired for a serious accident, and you may be made to pay for repairs in court for damage proven to be caused by gross negligence on your part, such as drunk or just reckless driving. But that's about it, really. Most half-decent companies are more interested in just keeping things moving than trying to squeeze you, the driver.
My love for you is like a truck berserker.
So trucking has a lot of advantages as a career on the front end. It doesn't take a lot of schooling to get started, and you won't be in the kind of debt that sticks to you like mud. With a little determination and willingness to move around, you will get trucking even as a greenhorn and begin to grind experience, and if you're smart, work your way into a more lucrative specialized field, as long as you don't make a big oopsie along the way, or just have the right connections. You know how it is. However, for most truck drivers, 40 hours a week would be considered part-time work, and 60-70 is more standard. When you add in all the non-driving duties which the driver is often not directly compensated for. A lot of the drivers will tell you themselves that they are overworked and underpaid, making about 50 to 70k a year, taking on all that risk and responsibility and all the sacrifices that come with the lifestyle. Sometimes it can work out to damn near minimum wage when you count every single hour worked. Now, what would make it really worth going through this as opposed to other paths? Is there something more to it than just overcoming the cost of living crisis by giving up on having a life? Sure, this might suit some people who, let's face it, might not have much to lose in the first place. But what is there beyond that? Well, consider this. As a long haul guy, you get to travel and experience so many different places. And I'm not just talking about this in a thrifty tourist sort of way. I'm talking about seeing the conditions and opportunities in different parts of the country. I think a lot of us who have worked at least for a few years have already realized that most jobs actually halt your personal development in many ways by getting you caught up in trying to build money to have lots of these challenging and eye-opening experiences. But it's just never enough to break away unless you already come from money. At least with long-haul trucking, you get exposed to a wide array of things you could experience if you so choose. And I mean meaningful experiences. Don't be that driver who brings lizards into the truck stop showers with him, so that drivers in the showers adjacent to them have to listen to all that hot pipe cleaner action. You know, girls tend to get extra giggly and loud when they know there's other men around to hear, so it makes it extra frustrating for some already frustrated drivers who don't want to take that road. Anyways, think about this. What does it take for most people to experience these different cities and regions? I mean, really picking up in the living conditions and economy of these cities. This job gives you so much time to spectate these things. Compare that to trying to do that on your own time. All that gas and plane ticket money on hotels or B&Bs. You simply won't get this level of scouting opportunities elsewhere unless you're super rich. And obviously this is a very valuable thing to have if you're trying to make a jump to somewhere better for you than where you are right now. You don't have to risk so much by dumping all your eggs in one basket before scouting out an area first, relying only on surface level details and whatever the media is saying. And if you're looking to get into a different career, this is a very good way as long as you make the effort. For a start, truckers are exposed to a ton of other fields that surround their work, such as dispatching and other transport company office stuff, shipping and receiving, security work, construction, truck stop and wash bay work, truck cleaning and detailing, bus and taxi driving. Those are big ones for the off-season if you're doing seasonal specialized trucking work, hotels and hospitality, and of course things specific to different loads like oil field work, tow truck driver, wrecker. You get the idea. People in these professions are frequently encountered all over the place by over-the-road truckers. Same goes for off-road truckers. You can work towards becoming something like a bush pilot. You just need a pilot's license and the right contacts in those remote areas. And you definitely aren't limited to looking at these trucking adjacent jobs. You just have to use your downtime to feed your curiosity about all these different places you'll go. And also, as a truck driver, you'll start to get a sense of the unmet needs of the industry in your given area. And I'll tell you, one thing that's needed right now is diesel mechanics. Working on your mechanical knowledge with these big trucks at every opportunity will get you to where you can start doing basic repairs and diagnosis. And maybe when you feel it's the right time at the right place, you can go on to an apprenticeship. And maybe after that, start a little mobile mechanic business in some underserved area and chill. You don't have to be the best, you just have to be there. But honestly, a lot of places pay the mechanics pretty good anyways. And you know, just like the ability ability to drive truck. Being a diesel mechanic is just good to have in your back pocket. Just try not to work on someone's old junker that breaks down the day after they leave your shop and they blame you. And don't worry too much about them doing some big switch to EVs. A lot of the truck components will remain the same anyways. Now, if you want to do something else, but you still want to drive a little bit and make good money, there are so many service type jobs that are part driving and part specialized skill set, mostly for when you are at the customer doing your thing. Maybe delivering different types of oil or driving hydrovac, or again, wrecker if you can handle some gruesome scenes. Those automated trucks that they are just shoving down the pipeline are going to have a hard time hooking up hoses in awkward, constantly changing work sites, and efficiently planning out schedules without actually talking to human workers on the ground. One of the pleasures of doing long haul is the adventure of it and being cut loose a little more than most workers. You will often leave early in the morning, not because you have to, but because you want to be settled in the truck for the day and see the sunrise on the road. Then you go through towns and cities, some familiar, some not so much. Some places people are friendly, some have enough friends. And then there's the long stretches in between, which are mostly boring. But the truth is, virtually anything can happen out there. The dangerous, the wild, and the wondrous. There's just a certain sense of freedom and adventure that comes with setting out on a long trip to a new place, which keeps coming back even after years of doing it. And sure, it wears off with the grind and monotony of the trip itself, but it sure is enchanting, especially when your other job options involve being cooped up in some place, doing monotonous tasks, or trying to get the printer working. Well, with trucking, you can do both those things and also fly down the highway all day. By the way, having and using the cruise control is very important because it's always tempting to push the pedal just a little harder, simply because you aren't always paying much attention to your speed and it feels good to accelerate. And having to constantly check yourself and fighting against that temptation can bring on a certain type of stress. But yeah, you can also think of trucking as a sort of RPG grind. It's a little heavy on the fetch quests, but you get to interact with people and learn about all these different locations. And then you work your way up the tech tree, like maybe you go into flatbed, and after a few months you get into heavy equipment hauling. And sometime after that you get into oversized loads and heavy hauls. Or maybe let's say you spec into tankers. You start with food grade and then you go into intermediary petro products. And then maybe you do some off-road propane runs into mine sites for 4 months of the year. The actual shape of your tree depends on your starting circumstances and location, of course. But eventually you might end up somewhere where you get paid enough money for little enough work, but highly skilled work, that life starts feeling relatively comfortable compared to where you were. And I have good reason to think that this can be accomplished in only a few years. This is about the truck driver shortage, but once again, it's not what they say it is. You see, different parties involved have their own biased views on what this term means, and for many companies, the shortage is just a way to try and cope. About the fact that a lot of the old guys with a ton of experience in super specialized trucking fields are now hanging up their hats, and now they have to actually train newer drivers in these specialized fields, instead of just making a phone call to someone who is ready to go for the right price, because he could just as easily stay retired. You see, the way a lot of these companies work, time spent training newer drivers can be very costly compared to just paying a high wage to get it done. They miss out on some big profits on production or construction or whatever it is they're doing. You know, for all their faults, the boomers are something else in the work world, but they can't do it forever. And eventually, and by that I mean soon, these companies are going to have to stop coping and start hiring younger people for these specialized roles. For contrast, back in 2008, boomers still had all these good jobs clutched tightly in their talons. So back then, between the recession, the boomers, and the nepos, it was much more of a battle to get one of these positions. Anyways, there is a funny thing that happens when you encounter how different industries actually operate and not just their public perception. It all starts to seem oddly small scale compared to your impressions going into it. Like you can see the patterns these industries exhibit without being overwhelmed by all the specific details. You can tell when the executives of a company have checked out, and you can tell when all the employees on the ground have conspired to lower the bar. That's when you know, unless it's just a big money laundering thing, that there will eventually be a lot of chaos at that company and opportunities may appear from it. You know, you can get your contacts just through doing deliveries sometimes and just try and line things up, so when the timing seems right, you might be able to make a move. And yeah, trucking is one of those jobs under threat by AI programs, but that's not really an immediate concern, and a lot can be accomplished in a few years. The powers that be are in a rush to automate a great number of blue-collar jobs, especially the ones that show any traces of upward mobility. Taking this into account, suddenly a sweatshop on wheels doesn't sound so bad when you realize its potential, where again, you can see many places and many opportunities if you have eyes out for them. Bottom line is, in your whole life, there's a pretty good chance that no one's ever going to tell you what's really good out there for you, because if they know, then they much rather go after it themselves. So you just have to walk the path and have a little faith in yourself that you'll find something. And trucking is not the worst vehicle for that. And if you get into trucking and they kill your job in 5 years, just know that it's not about improving production or efficiency. What good are those things when no one is even making a decent wage to pay for anything but bare essentials? What it's good for is to make you poor, and them richer by comparison. That way, they can funnel more bitches who are just looking for an easy life towards them, while you are funneled into being a loser and quite possibly the end of your family line. It's not just trucking jobs on the chopping block, but I wanted to bring your attention to trucking because of the advantages I just outlined. And that they do take your decent job out from under you. Do what comes natural, survive, and don't forget that pain. And also don't forget that at the end of the day, win or lose, you've got to try something. You don't want to be, for instance, one of those NEETs who goes on believing for years that their parents will finally come through for them and provide some answers and assistance to get you on your feet. For real, because I know some of you need to hear this. Do not assume that just because your parents talk a big game about having your back that they actually do. If that is not the kind of behavior you have seen, only words. You don't want to end up in deep suffering because you cling to those mere words, allowing yourself to get to the end of your rope. Just because you thought they would finally come through and catch you, at least if things actually got really bad. They already showed you what they are. Caring about someone surviving and thriving includes the big and the small things. Now have one last trucker tip for the road. When you're riding off into the sunset, sometimes sunglasses aren't enough. They can make your eyes more comfortable, but the sun glare on your windshield and sunglasses can destroy your visibility all the same. So what you can do instead is get some kind of hat that you can pull down over your eyes and block out everything above the horizon so all you see is the road. As long as your windshield is half decently clean and not smeared with grime and bug juice, it should work. Your classic trucker hat is good for shielding your face from the punishing sun, but that's more of a general purpose. You really need something tighter to your face to be more precise about it, and you can actually hold your head in a comfortable position while doing it instead of having to aim the brim of your hat at the horizon, which can be quite a strain because the sun can be in your face for an hour or more before it finally sets. Anyways, I'll be back soon to drop another one. This video took way too long, but I got stuff in the pipeline. But anyways, that's all for this one, folks. And now, if you were thinking about it already, or now you're thinking about it, you're better equipped to give trucking some fair consideration. Before I wrap this one up and start working on whatever's next, I have a favor to ask. I'd be grateful if you'd click the link in the description and go follow me on Kick. I'm going to be posting up some exclusive content over there, and eventually I might stop posting on YouTube entirely. We'll see how it goes. I'll be playing lots of vidya over there, and you can find me on Twitch too.